Hello everyone, Zelrant here, and more information is starting to come out on Laney as they're getting to test her out on the CN side of things. I've seen that Sephi's Loot and Waifus has now updated his tier list with where he places Laney based on their own testing, as well as having some showcases with their different variations of Laney with like 0 dupe here, and then you have like the maxed out dupe one here with the weapon. So we'll kind of take a look at those. Not going to watch the entire videos of these. I will put the link to them in the description note for anyone that wants to go and watch them. Sia has been very good and on top of getting these videos out as soon as anything is available. They actively play on the CN version while I do not. I only can go off of what I see from people like him who are actually able to test them out. And does really good job. We'll just take a quick look at some of the damage numbers in here and kind of the ending, but we're not going to look at the entire thing. You can just go to those from the link in the description, and make sure to subscribe to him as well, because he's got really good content from the CN version. But the first thing I want to take a look at here is Sephi's tier list. I always love looking at the tier list to see where people rate them. Know that these tier lists are subjective. I always try and say that in the beginning when I'm looking at tier lists. It is all subjective. Now, there's objective facts in terms of who can do the most damage when you mathematically look at it, and sometimes you'll see that in tier lists, but that's not always true in all cases. One thing I see is that Laney has been put as tier 2 on this list, which it kind of makes sense from what I've seen. And one of the big reasons is I'm hearing that she's not actually the true hyper carry for physical still. Physical still is in need of their hyper carry in the team. Laney's very good at what she does, but right now, realistically, you still don't have the entire team together. You have Yuhi as kind of your main support. Diane's kind of fallen off a little bit, but she's kind of got that high mobility, get around and hit the target from behind. You have Faye, who's your standard user, who's going to be the one that you can get a lot of dupes on, who can just kind of be some extra damage in there in defense. I think a little bit of defense reduction. And so you're kind of seeing most, like a majority of the physical team is kind of in that tier 2 right now, as they're still not fully complete. People are saying we could very well see the next physical unit coming within the next upcoming one still as well. But overall, from what I've seen, I've looked at these videos, the videos of the gameplay and a little. She looks really good, especially at Dupe 6. But you have to take that into consideration that it's been out in CN for a while, and you're going to see really big numbers on this in comparison to what we can pull off in global to a certain extent. But even then, it's still not competing with the highest damage of all the elements, which is going to be the two biggest right now being Burn and Hydro. And then you have Corrosion, which has got a crazy damage when it's not even fully complete, because you just have the Klukai, Mishti, and Peridia combo. I'm waiting until we see like the main another main sustain / support. Like if you get a Springfield level support in Corrosion side, holy crap, that's gonna be crazy. But let's go ahead and see what they say about Laney here, and then we can kind of look at how she plays on the other videos here. So we open it up. They have to say, let's see, some notes on her. So we already know she has SSR, SMG, Physical Sentinel for her. And so, big note right at the top, and this is already known with Yuhi. One negative drawback of her right off the bat is, and this is I think physical in general, Yuhi's kind of mandatory for the physical in terms of elevating them up. And you really want her to get Yuhi at V1 to make her really work, that's kind of the note here. And we'll get more into Yuhi when she comes out, because we're almost certain that she's going to be the next unit on global. So I will be covering Yuhi. I believe at the end of this week is when we should get information. If not at the end of this week, the end of next week. So we will start going heavily into Yuhi. I think Yuhi is a really great character overall in the game, but she is a very dupe dependent unit. And then Laney and physical overall is heavily dependent on having her in your team. But saying this, she is a mid-sub DPS having physical exclusive defense shred. That's her biggest thing that she has going on, she does good damage on her own, but she's not the hyper carries. Everything I'm seeing, she's all about that defense shred, especially if you go heavy into her dupes, because you can get like up to like 400% plus lower than 0 defense shred, which can really be ramped up by Yuhi. It's physical, so she is the new best DPS for the team right now. She has higher numbers than every physical doll before her, which wasn't hard to achieve, right now physical is kind of weak overall from before. clunky gameplay. It loses damage in Gunsmoke because the clone can't pick up damage boosting boxes, and that's a new thing that we don't really have in Global. And you're gonna I think see this when we go into the video here. You're gonna see some really big numbers, but that's because they have things like damage boosting boxes that kind of amp up your damage, as well as in Gunsmoke. Once your platoon gets to certain levels, you get damage boosts on your characters as well. But you can't interact with any levers, so the clone can't interact with the environment or consoles, so you can't cheese any of the puzzles on like puzzle stages where you have your units. And exclusive defense shred and selfish defense penetration. I think what it means by the selfish defense penetration is she can do a crap ton of defense penetration, but it's like all focused on her. She's taking advantage of it, not the team as a whole. And then even if 100% defense penetration sounds insane, her damage is nowhere near the damage numbers of the top 3 elements: corrosion, burn, and hydro. Get her if you want to build physical and fill out your collection, but if you don't plan on getting a V1 Yuhi, just skip her, which makes sense. If you're not going to get a V1 Yuhi, physical all around is just significantly weaker because she's kind of that core support for the group. And physical's all kind of dependent on each other because of her. And then, important side note, get at least 3 attachments with max HP percent for her passive. Don't over-invest into it. So I'm thinking that is, I can't remember the passive off the top of my head. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at that. I can't, what was the passive on that? I think it was scaling for crit or something. Yeah. For every 12 points of initial max HP, increase crit by 0.1% up to 30%. So that is kind of a very, it's nice that you can get 30% crit right off of it, but you can think how that's kind of annoying because now you gotta kind of really work your attachments to get that, but not anymore. She doesn't need HP for anything else other than that. And so that's just kind of an annoyance with building your attachment pieces. But just know if when it comes to farming your attachments, you may want to try and save one off if you're really interested in getting Laney and building the entire physical team now. If you get one of those pieces. But then even though 100% defense penetration sounds insane. Oh, we already read that. Okay, so we got to go to the dupes now. So this is the usual with Generation 2 dolls. So this is kind of that second generation, which we're kind of getting into now ourselves. It was the ones that came after kind of Klukai and Springfield. V1 is a very good breakpoint, which if you remember, I really liked her V1. It really ramped her up. Everything else is mid besides V6. I don't know if I completely agree with that one, though. Now, I haven't been able to test her, but I thought like everything on here looked like it had a decent damage amp to it. V5 was the only one that I felt was a little underwhelming, but I felt like everything else was pretty decent on the dupe side. I mean, because, yeah, now you can get your crit up to 60% on V3. More stacks under my umbrella. But then again, I haven't had the chance to kind of test it and kind of run the numbers on it. So I can kind of trust that since they have worked with it, worked with her, and we can kind of see it in the videos up here as well. But you're better off going all the way to V6. Oh, you're better off getting a V6 Yuhi than Laney V6, which does make sense. Yuhi's V6 is really, really good. And so if you're wanting to invest in somebody heavily on the physical side, Yuhi's the better one to do that. Because not only is she going to be good with the physical team, as they mentioned here, she's outright good with all elements. And I believe Yuhi, you want to get to V3 to be kind of universal support for all elements. But V6 makes her even more insane for all elements there. And then she does work outside the physical team if you bring Yuhi, but you're better off with someone like Springfield, Klukai, or Leva. And that's the thing. She can work as a pair with Yuhi outside of her own team because she does all her defense penetration that she needs on her own. She has insane defense penetration. But even though they're kind of a core that can go together, Klukai and Peridia or Michti together are going to be way better. In the same way that your Leva/Lena or your Springfield or Tololo. And Springfield Tololo is probably one of the most broken combos that pair together in any content. So yeah, it's kind of tricky there. Weapon is the same as the other two SMGs. Use Farg if you don't want to get a signature. Not much of a DPS difference. And so we've seen that a lot because everybody can get a free V6 or R6 Svarog through the platoon. And so it's been kind of like the default one to get for the unit. I mean, if you just don't want to invest in a limited weapon, that's an easy solution for it because you're given a free one right off the bat. So they have her at tier 2, and I think it's kind of tricky. I think physical as a whole is kind of like that tier 2, because that's the one thing with tier list as well, is it really doesn't take into consideration the entire team. Like you have Mishti and Peridia down here, but they're insanely good. And if you want to do, like if you have a V6 Klukai and you're doing Gunsmoke Frontline, Mishti and Peridia are insane on the boss battles. Peridia does crazy good damage, especially if you can get her to V6 eventually. And being a standard unit, that's not out of the realm of possibilities. And then Mishti just converting Peridias to Corrosion makes her really good. But they have her in tier 2 here. And that's kind of one, and that's where it's kind of tricky. And that's where that other, the other list that kind of shows the teams everyone's using kind of comes into play, is because I feel like that's more important. What's the best team build? Like right now on CN, I'd say it's probably the Hydro's probably one of the best ones right now, which is going to be your Springfield, Tololo, Nikita, and then having Klukai with either Mishti or Peridia. Either one of those two. That team of 5 is probably the single best right now, and continues to be the single best on the CN side. And then you have kind of other little bit of mixes there, and Burn, and that you have Burn, and then Electric with Leva, and then you have I don't know where you could. I think I would put Physical above Ice at this point. It's kind of tricky. But I think Physical is a little bit better than Ice at this point, because Yuhi is a lot better than I would say Dush. So yeah, a little bit still not elevating him up. I think it brings him up, makes him better. But I've heard that she's not the hyper carry. That another big Physical will be coming, and that is known from the developers' mouths, from what I understand. And so, who knows what could happen with the next one? Because Laney, especially if it's like a hyper carry that has supportive capabilities where they're amplifying the ability for other people to do damage alongside their own, that can bring Laney up even more in terms of the team synergies. But let's go ahead and just take a look at her in some videos here. Just a quick glance at kind of how they play. You can kind of see here, I just kind of right in the middle of it when they've already got like all the buffs applied. I'd rather not, because I don't want to watch the entire thing. I'm just kind of showing little snippets of it. And let's see. So this one has like a good chunk of the buffs on here. You already have the clone out here. You can see a hit against the pillar here. Now I could not see. Now with the training dummy, you can set like weaknesses and how it acts. And so you had that one go off, and then it switches to, or is that okay? That was Yuhi that shot there. I want to see Laney kind of damage. Okay, so this one is now on the clone. And the one thing is, he's actively talking in this and explaining stuff too. So you'll definitely want to watch, if you want to really see how she works, you definitely want to watch this video. So just go ahead to click it on the description if you want to hear what he's explaining with regards to how she's working here. And let's see. And that's one of the reasons it's a little bit slower here, because he is talking quite a bit on it. And this one is a Dupe 0, I believe. Yeah, so this is Laney's Dupe 0 with no weapon, but it has a Dupe 3 Faye, a Diane with a Planata Dupe 6, a Yuhi with a Dupe 3 Yuhi without the signature weapon, and then Papa Shah with Dupe 5, and then Svarog Dupe 6. So yeah, so explaining that. Okay, I want to see the damage here. Okay, Papa Shah going off. Papa Shah's damage has not changed at all. So even with from just using her on Gunsmoke. All right, is this one? Okay, here goes Laney going in. Our Diane's gonna go, I guess. It's a nice little hit out of her. The problem is, like, you'll see big 30,000s on Klukai, and you're like, that's great. But that's because she's doing it multiple times. She goes in, does like the 35k, Then you have the dots that blow up that do like another 20 to 30k, and that does it twice. And then you have the second time she does her ultimate and they pop again. And then you have Peridia with her support actions coming in. So these numbers look great, but they're only doing it one time on the hit. And there's that one. So 13 point that, and then she comes in with her own 23. I think that was the AoE one as well. And here we go again. Oh, there was her attack there. Yeah, here's the one where it's like a multi-hit, I believe, where she actually does some decent damage on it. So 14, 29. I think there was a third one in there, and then the other one came in. So that one's getting up there in damage, and so that's the Dupe 0, and that's paired with the V3 Yuhi. But let's look at the Dupe 6 here. Oh, went to my BGM there, but let's look at Dupe 6. And so this one is actually tested out in the Gunsmoke Frontline. I think this is the physical buff that you have here, benefiting the most. You can kind of see all the up arrows on them. Technically not benefiting QJ, but I'm going to guess QJ has her expansion key off in this one. But let's kind of jump in there and kind of see, because the Dupe 6, I will say, looks really, really good in terms of damage. Now, if you look at like Hydro and what you can do with Nikita and Springfield, though, with Dupe 6, it still makes this not look too good. But I do like the numbers I'm seeing on Dupe 6. Let's see where we can jump in here, where they're kind of already heavily buffed. There it was. So I think that was Diane that just went there. There's your QJ doing a ton of damage. And then here's Laney. Yeah, here's Laney's coming in, and you're going to see her pop off with all the... You can see the defense reduction on already. So it's going to be a massive hit. 38,000 right there. Oh, 50, 76. And then boom, the other one comes in for 119,000. And then you have QJ following up with QJ in there, 22. So you can kind of give it a comparison to QJ a little bit, since we already know how QJ works. Now, on this one, I believe the QJ is Dupe 6 with a Golden Melody Dupe 6. So this is like a fully built out maxed QJ. And that was the kind of damage QJ was doing right after on her follow-up there. So you can see, what was it then, like 180 in that one hit. Now you kind of have to build up to it, and you have that turn that's kind of a waste when you do the summon. So I expect to have a big number on it. But we've seen bigger with the other teams. But overall, I don't think it's too bad, and I think, like, I definitely will be getting at least a V1 Yuhi and getting her just to kind of have my physical team. I'm really wondering who the hyper carry is going to be, though, because that's what I'm hearing. And you'll see that if you look in the comments, people kind of discuss it, and you can actually ask questions on there. Where is it? Which one? I see someone mentioned it in here as well. Yeah, this is where they said at the 6 dupe, but still not being the hyper carry is insane. Hyper carry is only considering F0 performance for free to play. You should see what Nikita and Leva can do at V0, V1, and V6. And that's where they're saying that the numbers aren't really there, because you're comparing it to the like Hydro and Electric, what they're doing and their capabilities within their team without all the dupes. But yeah, that's it pretty much overall. Even though it's like, this game is easy enough that if they're a character in the teams that you like, even if we don't get a level or a character that elevates them up, physical's fine. You can see the damage. They do great. You're going to be fine with it in all content. Now, I have not seen anything on the EX mode yet. That's the next thing, and I'll be doing a follow-up video on that once I get more information on that. But that is Laney for right now. I'd say she's plenty good. I'm getting her for sure. I like the concept of the kit, even if it is a little bit clunky, and it'll have some unique use in the future. But we'll kind of see from there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.